Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for being here for the first installment in the Arkansas Native Plant Society's 2024 webinar series. We're very excited to have Brendan Kosnik with us here today as he walks us through his botanical adventures in Arkansas. Brendan is a native of Michigan, so he's a transplant to Arkansas, but there in Michigan, he studied biology at Grand Valley State University in Allendale. And then in 2021, he moved to Jonesboro, Arkansas, to pursue his master's degree at the Arkansas State University, where he worked with Travis Marsico in the Marsico Lab. Brendan's thesis research focused on rare sedges in the Mississippi Alluvial Plain and Crowley's Ridge ecoregions of Arkansas. But now Brendan works for the Nature Conservancy's Arkansas field office in Little Rock, where he has begun to support plant community monitoring and prescribed fire programs. Today's webinar is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and I'll drop a link to our channel in the chat here shortly. So if you want to rewatch the webinar, you're more than welcome to go there to view it, along with all of our other past webinars we've been doing over the past several years. If you'd like to learn more about the Arkansas Native Plant Society, you can do so by visiting our website at anps.org. And joining is pretty simple. You can join online on our website. If you're not already a member, I'd encourage you to go on there, and you can use a PayPal account to join at anps.org/join. It's pretty easy, and as a member benefit, you get access to our biannual newsletter, and also you get to come to all of our meetings that we have in the spring and the fall, where we host hikes and plan try to spread those out across the state. I believe we'll be in Southwest Arkansas in the fall. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Brandon, who's going to give us a talk on experiencing botany through the eyes of an Arkansas traveler. Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks, Eric. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Coming through? Okay. Well, just want to say thanks again to Eric and ANPS for having me give this talk. Everyone should become a member of ANPS, attend the fall and spring meetings as well. All right, so I'll get into my talk here, experiencing botany through the eyes of an Arkansas traveler. So this was kind of just me sort of figuring out a way to maybe tie in a few different ideas that I've been. And so this is going to be kind of a new style of talk that I'm trying out. And if people want to drop questions in the chat as we go along, that's fine too. If Eric might be monitoring that, I'm sending some questions now. But there are a few other titles for the talk, kind of nodding to this old folk song, Comic Routine. Does this road go all the way to Little Rock? Or you don't know very much, do you? Or you're not too far from a pool. Anyone's familiar with that routine. Okay, so the talk I originally billed was going to cover a lot more that I won't be able to get to all in this talk. So this is going to really just be part one. And if people want to hear the other parts after this, it might require another talk. And if we want to just end it after this one, that'll be fine too. But this is going to be part one, which I'm calling alluvium. And I'm just going to take a moment. I'm trying to hide, get something off my screen. Okay, so this is going back to when I first got to Arkansas and the work of Katie Sims and Grace McCartha, master's students at Arkansas State University, in the lab of Travis Marsico, and then some of the other important people helping out on this quite a bit, Richard Abbott of Arkansas Monticello, and Matthew Jones as well, bachelor student in biology at the time. Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit. As Eric mentioned in my bio, I'm originally from Michigan, so I wanted to sort of start the story back where I was before this kind of sort of botanical adventure began. I don't know if you can see my mouse as I'm moving it, but this is a photo I took a little bit before I moved down to Arkansas. in Grand Rapids, Michigan, my hometown. And this is Richmond Park, and you can see the buildings of Grand Rapids here to the left of the photo. And so this is just a park where I spent a bit of time. And so the neighborhood I was living was down below that hill. And just going and looking at plants, looking at these cool oak trees. This may have been sort of an oak savanna, oak forest. In this area, they put a lot of cemeteries here on these hills with these large oak trees and open spaces. And I was basically just waiting for the snow to melt, looking at moss and whatever was growing at the time. I was this is a year kind of after COVID. I was trying to figure out career and life and everything, but knew I wanted to really focus on. And I kind of included this photo because there's a Michigan mosses book, and that I had been looking at while looking at mosses in Michigan, but I happened to come across that book at the Arkansas State Herbarium as well. But that's kind of the story. So there's the city I'm from, Grand Rapids. So I included a few aerial images in this presentation. I don't know how helpful they'll be without labels, but just kind of my perspective on things kind of comes from this bird's eye view. But anyway, here's Grand Rapids, the Grand River, flowing from the north to south through downtown. And so these buildings that we're seeing in the photo are kind of at the lower edge of the photograph. And Richmond Park is up here. And then the high school I went to as well, West Catholic. And then there's kind of Grand Rapids in relation to Lake Michigan. So you can see where the Grand River flows, the lake here. Okay. And so just trying to show through these where I was coming from and where I was going. And so that's kind of the Great Lakes region, which I moved away from. And then I have just a couple photos of some Michigan plants here. Sorry. So this is kind of where I was going to college before, in just west of Grand Rapids in Allendale. So it's the Grand River again, and there's this ravine system on the east edge of the campus. And so I was spending that March, again, trying to find anything that could grow here. And so kind of the first thing, this is a plant growing in Michigan in the photo, but this can be found in Arkansas as well. So Virginia Spring Beauty, Claytonia virginica, in the Montiaceae. And then this is what I found in the boardwalk that I was looking for: skunk cabbage, Symphocarpus foetidus, in the Araceae family. That can't be found in Arkansas. It's more northern and eastern. And similar to our first sedge of the day that I was seeing poking around in those woods, seersucker sedge. So I've included a lot of common names in as the first name in this presentation, but that means I kind of get to choose the common name I like the most. So seersucker sedge, Carex plantaginea, could also be called the plantain leaf sedge. It's got very wide leaves that are quite distinct. So it's in the Cyperaceae, the sedge family. And those are kind of just showing the early shoots in that species that would bear the flowering stems. And then this is a butterfly I saw in those ravines in the woods. That's my favorite butterfly. So I saw this the week before I moved to Arkansas. And I include it here because it can be found in Arkansas as well, and recently saw it again for the first time this summer. But this is a morning cloak butterfly, Nymphalis antiopa in Valley Day. Kind of just an early emerging butterfly. Blends in really well in the brown Michigan woods of March. And here's the map kind of going southward to show where I was moving. So from this Great Lakes region into this Mississippi River region, going down to the Delta. And I made a quick stopover in Chicago. It's kind of, if you look at the map, Chicago and Illinois is kind of the connecting point from Michigan to Missouri and Arkansas in a lot of the ways for me. And Chicago, through channelization, that would be the man-made connection of the Great Lakes to the Mississippi drainage, which they would not naturally be connected watersheds. Okay, so moving us towards Arkansas. So chapter 2. Did anyone have any questions on chapter 1 or anything so far? Oh, my sound is cutting. Okay. Can someone just let me know if the sound's coming through all right now?
Yeah, I hear you just fine. I think it just it had seemed fine to me too, but it's just whenever you turn your head, it's a brief little quietening.
Okay. Okay.
But
All right. I'll make sure to just speak as clearly as I can then. Okay. Thanks. Okay. So here is Frederick Meyer Gardens in Grand Rapids, and shown are my brother and his fiance. They're recently engaged, so I want to just say congratulations to them. But it's kind of an important place for me. There's a tropical conservatory where I volunteered during my undergrad time. Came here during school field trips growing up to see butterfly exhibits, to see the sculptures, and I just like this kind of horse a lot. And so this is from the Meyer family, and it's kind of funny that my brother and his fiance both work for the Meyer. So I got on my horse and headed south. And so it's kind of nice on these maps. This little green dot will show us where Little Rock is. But here's Arkansas from the sky. And so you can see the delta pretty clearly. And then our Ozark Mountains and Ouachita Mountains and Gulf Coastal Plain. I hope these maps are okay for people. It's just something I enjoy. I'm looking at. Sometimes the borders and place names kind of distract from these natural features, and it's I just kind of think of like sort of like a John Lennon song or something, just imagining a world without borders and labels, and you can do that on Google Earth, and I really like Google Earth for maps and viewing things quickly and good imagery. But there's our wonderful state, and just showing this great diversity of topography, hydrology at these large scales. And you can see we're bordering deserts to the west, more of the eastern forest to the east and south here. And here's Jonesboro, where I moved to on Crowley's Ridge, which is in the Delta, surrounded by the Delta, I should say. And so here's kind of some of the first plants I saw when I got down to Arkansas at this kind of historic spot on campus. So just some roses. Those wouldn't be native plants, but I think that's a cherry bark oak there, and possibly a pecan on campus. If some of the A-State students are on, they can correct me. And if I get any of these species names wrong throughout the presentation, please correct me as well. I'd rather have people have the right information. And then this was a cool one that, when I shot this photograph, I actually didn't really know what this species was, but this is the big leaf Magnolia macrophylla, which is, I don't know if it's known to exist in Arkansas anymore or not, or maybe just at very limited sites, but this was a tree on campus. So that's in the Magnolia family on the A-State Lab Sciences West building. Unfortunately, I think this tree has died in the past few years. So this is kind of an homage to a lovely tree. And so this is kind of why, getting into what I came down here for, and this was to help Katie and Grace do their island work. So you can see the Mississippi River snaking down through here to the south, and sort of this connecting point is Crowley's Ridge from Jonesboro to the southern extent and to Helena. Is where we did a lot of our work, where Crowley's Ridge meets Big River. And this is where we spent a lot of our time on Buck Island. So you can see Helena here, and that would be West Helena. It's combined as Helena, West Helena. But this was an adventure for sure. And you can see down on the bottom here this little inlet where we would put in at the boat ramp and come out onto the river and come up to Buck. And this is kind of a cool image. You can see the large barges that almost seem to be kind of glowing in this image that we were very safe to avoid. So we mostly stayed on the west side of the island on this minor channel, but you can see that dries up at a date like October, late in the year. So these river levels fluctuate quite a bit, and that's part of the challenge to navigation as well too. Okay, so this was kind of my first experience with botanical fieldwork proper in Arkansas, and this is what I arrived to see. So this kind of willow sandbar, mostly going to be, I didn't put the name on this one, but Salix nigra, black willow. I know Salix interior is on these islands as well. I don't know if we had it here or not too. But just where sand is collecting and these islands are starting to form is pretty cool. And of course, we found some sedges quite quickly. So here's our common eastern woodland sedge, Carex blanda. This is a good one to know. You can find it virtually anywhere. It needs a bit of shade, but it can grow in pretty open sun as well. And it's quite variable depending if it's in the shade or sun. Again, that's in the sedge family, the Cyperaceae. And Richard Abbott kind of gave me this visualization of the perigynia, so the fruiting bodies, as being like ice cream cones, which kind of works on both levels. The color is kind of this creamy white. So if you just imagine this as a mint or pistachio ice cream with a bent over tip at the top from that drooping ice cone melting in the Arkansas sun. But this came to be a plant I've seen a lot and really enjoy. And then some of our other trees we saw, sugarberry, Celtis labigata, or labigata, depending on how you like to pronounce those things, in the Cannabaceae. I was used to Celtis occidentalis from Michigan, and we have Celtis occidentalis and Celtis pumila as well in Arkansas. But this is the common bottomland hackberry, so this could also be called sugar hackberry. And there's a photo of what the bark can look like. That's from a different site at a different date, but showing also how the vines can impact the growth of the trees too. Okay. And then just wanted to highlight how important vines are, woody vines, especially the grapevines. I wasn't sure exactly what species this was just from this one photo I had, but that's the Vitaceae, the grape family. And it has leaf opposed tendrils is how I was taught this. So where the leaves meet the stems, you'll have that's where the tendrils, the vining, twining appendages will attach to other stems. You can kind of see it in this photo. It doesn't show it that well. I don't know if Richard's on or not. I don't know if this would be a part of his tendril at node motif or not. Or if someone else knows if this fits in that motif, they could drop that in the chat. Tendril at node, yes or no. Okay. Here's a nice aster. What I think it is, I didn't get this confirmed on INET yet because it's just kind of this one photo from the top, but it's probably Pachyra glabellum in the Asteraceae that would have formerly been called the compositae because of the composite heads. So each of these heads is composed of many flowers in the discs and ray flowers surrounding it. So that's the hallmark of the sunflower, daisy, or aster family. Just leave that up there for just a moment more. So just a nice yellow color when things were first starting out to grow. A nice gray sedge, immature in this photo, Carex grayi. But the bases of the perigynia are rhombic, so they have edges like a diamond rather than being rounded. So these were just some of the first species that we encountered, within the first few minutes of. At this point, we were still trying to document the spring flora and establish some of the phenology monitoring as well on this first trip. And then this is just another example of a woody swamp privet, Forestiera acuminata. This is an important shrub to small tree in the Delta. And here's showing its early spring flowering. And this is in the Oleaceae, the olive or ash family. And so it's got opposite leaves. So that'll fit into the madcap motif, which I believe Dr. Abbott's giving a talk on next month. So look out for that too. And then here's just kind of another classic tree that we saw a lot of, sycamore, Platanus occidentalis in the Pinaceae. So this was actually on Montezuma Island, just a little bit south of where Buck Island is. But I like this tree. It kind of makes a personal connection for me to the trees by my parents' house. They're not Platanus occidentalis, but they're the plain tree, the hybrid of Platanus occidentalis, North American sycamore, and the Eurasian plain tree species. The bark looks almost identical. But I really enjoyed seeing sycamore, and its roots get really crazy for any of the floodplain trees. And when it's just growing on riverbanks, it's really well adapted to these fluctuating water levels. Any questions on any of the plants I just showed there, or anything else? Okay. All right. Okay, so moving into our next month, which I've called Chapter 3, Mayfly. So here's kind of showing a nice habitat shot of one of the more southern islands, Choctaw Bar Island. So this is another Arkansas Game and Fish wildlife management area. I didn't say that before, but Buck Island is also managed by the Game and Fish Commission as well. So this Choctaw, this is down in Deshay County, and this kind of shows Katie and Grace and Richard plugging along, just essentially trying to find every species and document what's on these islands. And so here's showing a nice sort of grassland habitat. There's a lot of mixture of forbs and some woodies as well. So there's quite a high diversity of species in these habitats. And then if you consider the shaded woodland portions as well, there's just a high number of species on these planets. So just really impressive what Katie and Grace did, documenting this for 6 total islands. And Richard obviously being really helpful with his expertise in accomplishing that, and Travis as well. Okay, here's a nice sedge, Carex hyalina. This is kind of a classic floodplain bottomland species. So this river habitat is perfect for this sedge. It's pretty recognizable if you have the fruiting bodies, where there's not too many fruits per spike. This is one of our section ovales, one of our ovalian sedges with the flattened perigynia, and it's got tissue on the edges of it, which gives it what we would use the botanical term hyaline margins of the perigynia. You can see kind of the light passing through some of those translucent portions. And they're kind of going out at angles as well. Here is another graminoid, not a sedge, but a grass that I liked seeing there, Carolina canary grass, Phalaris caroliniana of the Poaceae, the grass family. Back up north, I knew it's Phalaris arundinacea, which is reed canary, which I don't know. Someone can correct me on the genetics, but I believe there's some native genotypes and some non-native genotypes, but it's regardless, the invasive portion of it has dominated a lot of areas up north. That's Phalaris arundinacea, but this is a different member of that genus. And just kind of some more of the sites we're seeing. So this is kind of taking us back to Helena, West Helena, at the Burger Shack, where we get some dinner after these long field days. And it may or may not have been the best Coke in town. I'll leave it there. And so this is kind of just showing that we were just plugging along on Katie's phenological work as well, looking at Raripa mustard species here, and Travis giving her some guidance that I think she's ruminating over and putting into action in the survey here. Moving along to chapter 4, June flower. Here's one of the other species Katie was monitoring in her phenology, the phyla lanceolata, frog fruit, fog fruit, whatever its common name is. I didn't have that species information here. And then kind of just highlighting another important sedge species on these islands. That's Carex crucicorvi, the raven's foot or crowfoot sedge. And it's got quite large spikes, really long, narrow beaks to the perigynia, and then sort of glaucous-looking leaves where there's kind of a whitish blue, or kind of a bluish color with a whitish bloom over it, and quite large for a sedge. This will be one of the larger members of Carex. And then here is Eastern black nightshade. This was another of our species where we tracked flowering and fruiting. So got to kind of know what these fruits looked like quite well. So Solanum emulans, member of the Solanaceae, and you can kind of see how those look like little tomatoes. Yep, it's a member of the same family. Eggplant too, and peppers. And also in the photo, you can see the leaves are getting eaten up too. So its leaves are the ones with the holes in them. And this is a pretty ubiquitous plant as well in other habitats. And then a classic sort of plant for the wet, mucky areas is our lizard's tails, Cerurus cernuus of the Cerulaceae. And it's just a really cool plant. And just it was really kind of cool to catch it in sort of this peak flower early on. And actually, I believe Katie or Grace took some of this back and maybe not this plant, but grew it in the A-State greenhouse as well. So it grew really well in the greenhouse too. kind of just moving along here. Chapter 5 called Julian. So here's one of our mimosa species. So we got to see some really cool views of clouds and sky. I wanted to put so many more pictures like this in the presentation because it's a different kind of perspective, just sort of being out on the river for extended periods and just in the delta generally. There's so much sky to see. So I believe this is actually looking west over Mississippi. Some cool plants that fit right into these islands. This hibiscus laevis, the halberd leaf rose mallow, and you can see its distinct leaf shape below the flower, where a halberd is kind of like a medieval weapon or something like that this resembles, with its kind of lateral lobes going perpendicular and then this longer lobe of the leaf tissue here. And just a really striking color of the flower. It's pretty stunning. Okay. And then just to finish the thought on the gray sedge from earlier, this is it grown up and more mature. So this will contain mature fruits inside those paragynia, so inside those spiky guys there. And it kind of looks like another medieval weapon to me. Just kind of some more adventures of the islands. So I believe this is a large cottonwood Populus deltoides, and I put that information for this photo, but back on Montezuma, that's Matthew, expert tree climber. And then sometimes you kind of get, you get bored out there or sunbaked doing this kind of work on these islands, kind of feel maybe stranded or something. And I guess I invented some sort of baseball game where I was throwing a bottle of some sort, because there's a lot of glass bottles that wash up. I don't recommend doing this. I would say just pick up the trash and don't throw it around. But desperate times call for desperate measures in the field. And that was maybe on chalk though. This was kind of one of my favorite plants that I got to encounter in this first summer I spent in Arkansas. I think this might actually technically be in Mississippi, but I don't know. I kind of consider everything in the river to be related. So this is Fox heliotrope, Ploca convolvulacea of the Boraginaceae, the borage family, and the hairiness of the leaves and tissues is a feature of this family, along with these sort of funnel-shaped flowers. So it's like forked towhead. This was an interesting one because it's more of a Western species known from the Western Arkansas River. So kind of a little bit of a disjunct thing that maybe moving down to Arkansas and Mississippi. And Katie and Grace found a lot of other interesting things like this that they've talked about in their work. But this was kind of the big one that I got to be around for them finding. And it was just a nice sandy spot on the beach where we took lunch to on not too hot of a day. So it's really pleasant. And that fly at the beginning of the chapter was on this species. And I have, if people want to know what that fly is, I can answer that at the end. Chapter 6, Augustine Dog Days. So this is just my niece back in Michigan, so I just wanted to pop her into the slideshow. She's probably like, she's 2 in this photo, and her birthday's in August too, so I thought it was fitting that she would get this one, but she's going to be turning 5 this year, so growing up quick. So always returning to Buck Island for another sunset. You can see these bucky shores here too, and these wing dikes here controlling the flow of the river, which are additional barriers to navigation or challenges. We did a good job avoiding the wing dams and dikes. We did get stuck in the mud on more than one occasion, but it's kind of worth the sunset. This is kind of a cool plant, Anglepod, Gonolobus suberosus. So this is it in flower. A member of the Apocynaceae, so that's the dog bane family or the milkweed family. You can see a little bit of its leaf there. You don't. It's not. I don't see it in flower too often, but it was cool to catch it. And it's a herbaceous vine, so just kind of included that to, remember we have the grapes, which are kind of woody vines that form woody tissues, but there's a lot of other vine species that are just herbaceous with no hardened tissue that are important members of these plant communities. We took a little brief detour to New Orleans that August as well. It was kind of fitting to go see where the river meets the Gulf and kind of connect that all the way. So this is at the city park in New Orleans near the Botanical Garden, where we spent some time too. So I just titled this September at School. I don't know, I guess that's what I feel like in the classroom or something. But that's a green tree frog with a pretty cool plant that I'll probably talk about, not so much in this presentation. And so this is kind of, the cleanup after the field season and processing all the samples. So it's a part of our wetland plant ecology class, and Katie helping us a lot with that as a part of her research project to look through the seeds of all the plants we collected and try to do a little project with that. I also included this photo of the A-State Botany Lab because it's since been renovated, so it doesn't have these wooden desks and cabinets full of jars in the same old style look. So I was happy to come across this photo from kind of a different era. And this is a geologic map of Arkansas that is really useful. You can find a really high quality PDF of this online, and if people want that, we can put that link to. But this is on the 4th floor where the herbarium is, and just a map I came to pass by a lot of times in school, and would kind of stop and look at a different place or a place I had been recently, and just kind of showing the amazing diversity and geologic history of Arkansas. It's pretty amazing, and showing with the roads too. And I do think all the roads lead to Little Rock in some way. So I think there was some sort of maybe sign in this of where my journey was going to move me eventually. But again, that's a later story. So my brother came to visit me that September. So just a little bit after my birthday, we met up in Kentucky to do some camping. and always finding another sedge at the campsite. So this was, Carex species growing literally in our campsite. So had to take a picture. So this is cattail-like sedge, Carex typhina in the Cyperaceae, and it's got rhombic achenes. So not the perigynia, but the fruits inside. So in addition to its longer spike shape, comparing it to Carex squarosa, the achene shape is different. So you can see inside view how that's like a rhombus or a diamond for Carex typhina. And just kind of some more pictures back in Jonesboro. I think it's an orb weaver and a ladybug and poison ivy behind it. So kind of showing us moving towards fall a little bit. But we're still on the road at this point doing work, and I took some trips myself. I went to Detroit for a concert, and stopped back home in Grand Rapids, back at Richmond Park, where I showed kind of the first photo, and kind of having a new perspective on a lot of things after the first field season down in Arkansas, and thinking about the sand here, the sand there, these different trees that are growing at a different latitude and a different ecosystem. So like I just really gained a lot of perspective, and when I returned home, a lot of that sort of set in from the lessons of that first field season. And kind of just one last photo I think it's our last photo from Helena, in the city, trying out some new glasses. Sunglasses tend to disappear in the field as well, so it's always good to have a backup. Hopefully your friend has a backup. And there's our boat in the back as well. Just kind of one Jonesboro thing as well. Kind of random photo, but sort of moving towards the end here, so bear with me a few more minutes. So chapter 9, November, this is sort of our last hurrah, my last hurrah for this field season on the islands, and the fog had descended heavily onto Buck and the Mississippi River this day when I went out with Katie. And it's kind of just after Halloween here, so more spider stuff. We get to see a lot of cool mushrooms as well in these adventures. I didn't get to do too many photos of those in this presentation, but maybe in another one, if people like that, we can include more of the fungal friends. Okay, that's kind of all I have for today. Kind of some of the other stuff I teased but didn't get into is some of this. And if people are interested in me rambling on more about other stuff, can include this in a later talk or not. We'll see. But it's kind of some of the work with Ben at Cherokee Prairie, Ben Benton, your state botanist, and then kind of my field work as well on Crowley's Ridge and in the Delta. So that was part one of my talk series of alluvium. I hope you enjoyed some of these photos, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, we really enjoyed hearing about your experiences and travels, kind of where you started off in Michigan and coming down to Arkansas. What would you say is your favorite place that you've been to out of what you talked about today?
Well, I might just leave it with the one I have on the screen here. It's not from that time period I was talking about. This is later. This is from 2023. But a site where Richard and I came across Carex decomposita in this swamp here. The Cypress knee sedge, pretty rare species, and just a cool swamp habitat. So I like a lot of the swampy wetland habitats that I've seen in Arkansas. But this one is pretty far southeast in Arkansas, the where the Mississippi Alluvial Plain meets the Gulf Coastal Plain. So there's some cool stuff happening down there.
So was that the new population of that rare sedge that you found, or is that another sedge?
I think it's to my understanding, it was a new population that
Okay.
I mean maybe there's a herbarium specimen of it probably that just hasn't been digitized or something, but for INAT at least it was new.
Cool. So what out of all the different plant families or genera, do you have a favorite that you like to focus in on?
Maybe I've studied the sedges a lot, so those are important to me. Um, it's not necessarily a taxonomic group, but I also really enjoy trees. So if I guess to pick a tree genus, I like the oaks, Quercus a lot, and there's such a great diversity of oak species in Arkansas, especially as I've been in the western part of the state more to hear more about to see those species more, and then all these kind of amazing ones in the delta too.
So if you had to compare the flora in Michigan versus Arkansas, is there like what would you say like the biggest difference or maybe even a similarity would be?
That's a really good question, and I could go on a while, but I'll try to sum it up and say that it's kind of half and half, like similar and different. So it's similar in the fact that Arkansas and Michigan are both in the eastern forest biome, and so there's a lot of the species pool is similar. But Arkansas obviously has a lot more southern things that are just going to be in the southeast. I will say though that a lot of southern species do range up into Michigan, because of kind of the moderating effects of Lake Michigan and the other Great Lakes on the climate. And so that maybe tilts it to be a little more similar than people might think. But then again, on the flip side, if there's a lot of northern species, and habitats in Michigan, boreal things that don't get into Arkansas, or habitat types that are sort of common in Michigan, like bogs, like sphagnum bogs that are rare in Arkansas for a lot of reasons. Someone like Theo could explain that, a lot better, the geologic history and what limits those plant distributions and glaciers and things.
If anyone else has any questions, feel free to either drop it in the chat or unmute your microphone. You can ask Brandon. Looked like Katie mentioned that those sunglasses did in fact get lost in the river the same day they were purchased.
I think I remember that. I think she got another, did you get the same pair again now? I think maybe got a replacement.
I believe that those were Matthew's,
Oh, those are Matthews.
and yeah, he bought them because he needed sunglasses for the field day, and then I think before we even got out to Buck Island, he lost them in the river.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you don't want to be without sunglasses on on the boat rides if it's like so sunny too, the sun just shining on the water splashing in your eyes, carp shooting whatever at you.
Any questions? Last call. All right. Well, thank you again, Brendan, for doing this for us and sharing your experiences as an Arkansas traveler from Michigan. And
Mhm.
really glad to have you in the state now, working for the Nature Conservancy and bringing your expertise. I know I really enjoyed the first time I met you, which was on a wetland plant hike out at Woolsey Wet Prairie, where you shared a lot of your knowledge of the sedges of Arkansas and taught me a lot that day, including how to take a nice close-up photo with clarity using a smartphone. I still use that trick, and I'll always associate that with you. I appreciate that. Again, this recording of this webinar will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. So if anybody wants to go back and watch it again or see parts of it, maybe something you missed, you'll be able to do that here shortly. You can find out more information about the Arkansas Native Plant Society on our website, anps.org. I'd also like to encourage you to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Arkansas Native Plant Society, where you'll see upcoming announcement, future hikes, webinars, other programs that we're offering, as well as other native plant related material that we share. Our next webinar will be on August 10th. Excuse me. August 10th at 10 a.m. Sorry, where Dr. Richard Abbott, who Brendan mentioned in his webinar, will be given an overview of the woody plants with opposite leaves in Arkansas. Again, if you want to join a Native Plant Society, you can go to anps.org/join for details, where you can see where to mail a check, or you can use your PayPal account to join today online. Again, thank you all for being here, and we look forward to seeing you again in August. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brendan.